Hello, everyone, and welcome to the channel Taking Territory. And today I want to do probably what I call a Sunday riff, and we're going to call it Taking Stock. I've got a number of subscribers, and there is some of you who I know who will have seen me come back online over the last number of weeks, and I probably produced a fair quantity of thought. I know there's probably two or three of you who have actually just been following it, and but ultimately this riff is actually more open for everyone as well because I want to tie things together. And where beforehand I would probably say that a lot of the other work that I'd been doing was performative, as in, I'm trying to deliver a message. I've thought about something, I've built something, and I've executed it. This time, this is more. I hope you would think of it more integrative because I've picked up on maybe half a dozen, well, I would say half, I've done maybe probably about maybe 8 or 9 videos. And probably if there's a criticism, I've probably tried to unpack too much in each of the videos. And yeah, there's been a lot of thought has gone into this. To kind of just give you a bit of an insight into, just for a moment, why I've come back onto YouTube. There was a number of years ago where I'd started initially doing some stuff on YouTube, and I'd been doing a lot of thinking just generally around the topic of being a man and how to live a good life. I then stumbled across a counseling course, which took me 2 years to do, and I've now got an opportunity to volunteer in the community to contribute in that. And that's been excellent, but that's taken up a lot of my time. While there was definitely a financial and time-based cost to this course, what I think has been really exciting is that I probably know myself better, and I understand maybe people a little better. And I think one of the first things I've probably learned that I'm getting, well, at least I'm getting better at, is to shut up and to actually listen and to just give people the space to breathe and to think. But however, the curious thing I suppose about this medium is it doesn't necessarily lend itself to that. And I've been very blessed over recent months. I've had a chance to talk with people in the community and to do some counselling, and especially with the guys. I really enjoy working with the guys. Um, and I see it's interesting whenever I speak with these men, a lot of what they're saying to me, I see in myself, and it's really got me thinking that we're all dealing with the same problems. Now we're looking at it slightly differently, of course, but it's those big challenges to do with meaning, coherence, finding direction for our lives. We're stuck. We can't resolve certain problems. There's some things that are outside of our control. And how do we deal with it? And I think what's particularly interesting and where I imagine maybe this channel will fall and be of interest to certain men is particularly of those guys, those of us who are maybe, I hope it appeals to all guys from 20 through to 70 or maybe and beyond. But I think it's going to be of particular interest. A lot of guys who are hitting their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and you've done all the right things, you've done a lot of hard work, you've put the graft in, but you're now questioning, saying, is this it? Is there nothing more? Surely surely somehow I should have some more meaning and some more sense of life out of it. And I have to say, I've been there for a long time. I remember, I've probably started more recent, let's say more recent. I've been in a corporate job for probably half my career, on and off. But this last period of time, I've been in, it's a good business. Um, but I used to sit there, and I still do to an extent. I sit there on an idle Tuesday and everyone's behind their desk and they're going tap, 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 and click, click, click on the mouse. And I do think, what is the point? What are we all doing? We're all just sending emails to each other, and we're also finding reasons why every one of us can't do what we need to do. We're putting barriers up, well, because of this regulation or because of that regulation. And it all just feels gummed up and it feels hard. And I get it, of course, within the media, or not within the media, within the the commercial world, there has to be a message, there has to be almost something that you believe in. There's the vision statement and the rah, rah, rah behind it. And I suppose I'm naturally, maybe being ex-military, I'm quite good at getting behind the mission and believing it. But, and I will genuinely say, I think my company is very authentic in what they want to do. And that there is a I can really get behind what they're doing. And because it is something, it's a product that's helping people. But you know what? Sometimes I might say I don't mind the work, but sometimes it's trying to get excited behind the KPIs and the mechanics of it. And certainly that's not my build. And I know there's a lot of guys can get really fired up about deltas and KPIs and uh, growth variances and whatever. But I find that that isn't me. So I find sometimes, how do we get meaning from work, and what are we trying to achieve now? But so one of the big things that I've been touching on this week, and it's almost the central pillar upon which everything hangs on, is this idea of attention. And I have realized over the last number of years, and I think it's just down to my personality, that our attention is massively fragmented. I think everybody is pulled in 50 different directions. Part of it, I think, is just down to how busy life is, and I think other parts of it are down to how we use technology. And I think just then there is a number of us, because of the nature, maybe in some ways, maybe the more generalist nature of work or the type of things that we're doing. It I almost would say I don't feel like I'm doing anything well, and I want to be able to do something really good. And I understand, I'm getting it, that to do anything meaningful, we have to commit time and energy to it and absolute 100% focus. And I don't know whether that's been a little bit behind the quantity of YouTube videos that I've produced. I have to say I've enjoyed producing them. But here's the other thing as well, which has been really fascinating about this journey. Thinking is hard work. Um, and it's almost like, and I know that I'm someone, I know I'm not stupid. And people have often said to me that I'm quite a good integrative thinker. I'm not the quickest thinker, but I like to kind of pull lots of themes together, and I will be able to paint a picture afterwards about how that all connects. And I think the challenge for me is in a number of the areas that I'm picking is not necessarily, well, there are integrative themes within that, but to actually deliver and build a YouTube video and write a script and think about it, it's hard work. I almost think of it as almost like a knife that with the spinning grindstone. You know, when the knife's waving around there, it's nice and easy, but when you actually put it to the grindstone, and you press on it, that's almost what thinking is like. And it takes a toll. And I have to admit that I've been really tired the last number of nights while I've been writing these things and thinking about it, but it leaves me with mental burnout. And this actually makes it kind of interesting to me because I had said today, being Sunday, that I wasn't going to produce anything, and certainly I haven't thought about anything. This is why I'm just doing this now. But I do think, and this is touches on one of the topics that I did, even to do with this, the Sunday scaries in the video list that I did this about a week ago. Sunday is a day of integration. Sunday, by creation, it was designed to be a day of rest, and it should be a day where we neither produce almost nor consume. It is a day, I think, where we are grateful, and we should find a way of being able to not to escape, but to find our relax. Now, as a Christian, I know where my focus lies in that, but I've never been particularly good at it. But I feel that what I'm saying is I think Sunday should be a day where we let the silt settle and we let it all just collapse. Now, for example, I was brought up in a very strict Christian tradition where the Sabbath was absolute and you weren't allowed to kick a football or anything. And I think maybe in some ways over the years I went too much the other direction, that I thought, well, maybe the Sabbath isn't so important. It wasn't mentioned necessarily by Jesus in the as a requirement. And I know there's different views on this, but if I have to distill what I understand by the Sabbath now and over really thinking about it, for example, one could go to the gym, perhaps if one's conscience allows one to do it, but you don't go to perform, you don't go to expand, to work out, to meet your goals. One might go just to experience and feel one's body, to be embodied in the moment. And I think Sunday really is about a day of presence. And I think that one of the things I've been riffing on and reflecting about is how society has lost structure, how it is driven, it's incessant, it never ends, it runs and it runs and it runs and it runs, and there is no rest, there are no punctuation marks in it, where probably pre-Renaissance time there was rhythms, there was cycles, and that fitted naturally to how we were created. But we're now being expected to run 24/7, and it's endless and it's tireless. It tires us out, and it really is very, very challenging. And I think so. What I want to reflect on, especially as well as men who are naturally, I think, inclined to responsibility. And we have people like Jordan Peterson telling us, our responsibility is to carry the heaviest burden that we can carry. And yes, I get it. That is biblical. But in a world where there is no rest, that's a recipe for disaster. And I'm sensitive to, I think I'm sensitive as well. I mean, in a sense, as a Christian, I find that there is a coherence, there is a pattern of life, there is a framework upon which I can build my life and I can get a sense of meaning from. But I do reflect, I mean, how if you don't have a faith, it must be difficult in a way to sense, especially in the way the world's set up at the moment. One must question, what is it all about? Am I just working? And then when you look, you're working hard, you're paying taxes, and like at least probably 50 to 70% of your taxes in most Western countries are being spent elsewhere. You're not even seeing the reward back from your work now. So, but you maybe get it from family. And I don't want to necessarily say that you can't get meaning if you're not a Christian, but I do believe that the Christian worldview gives inherent meaning and a longer framework. But even certainly within the counseling circles, I mean, I would see that there is this period of time. I think it was like Heidegger talked about. I think he called it Das Man. It was almost like, I'm maybe going to get these words mixed up, but I think it was the ontic. It was something to do with essentially people are busy day to day to day to day, and they don't put their heads up, they don't look around. But what will happen in a lot of people's lives? Suddenly there will be a shock, there'll be a redundancy, there will be a death, something significant will happen, and especially men, and I would say, are at risk in their 50s when they're already carrying these huge, heavy burdens. And then they end up with almost, I think it's called like an ontic collapse. It's just like a collapse of meaning. It's like, what is my life about? And I think I'm really interested in speaking to people who are reaching that point. Maybe you haven't quite had this ontic collapse. You haven't quite thought, well, what is the meaning? But I do want to explore, what does it mean to live well, to have an ordered life, to have ordered loves, to be able to almost to treat life as it were, like a bit like a boiled sweet, and to be able to suck the flavor clean out of it, so that whenever you get to the grave, you're pulling as it were, you're pulling on the handbrake, and you're doing a handbrake turn up to the grave before you coupe into it. And I think what challenges me is the modern structure of the world as it sits. It just feels like it's hyperbolic, I know, but it feels like we're just slaves in the system, and we are enslaved by the system. We are serfs, and bad decisions or uncareful decisions on our part will mean that we get ourselves into more slavery, and things like that are, the wrong decisions are things like debt, and maybe getting into the wrong type of work, or committing to just like individual decisions. And that's the other point I think I reflected on one of my earlier things. Life changes. Just you're one bad decision away from a life of of slavery. In some senses, one maybe a bar fight, and you punch a guy like a knockout punch, and he ends up hitting his head on the back of the ground, or someone maybe who is in a good mood and they're driving their car quickly, and maybe they run someone over, or there's a car crash, you hit a deer or whatever, and maybe the person beside you's killed. So life is very precarious. And it's how then do we navigate this? How do we live well amongst it? And I think that, so what I reflect about is there is essentially serfdom and there is liberty, or at least a liberty of living. And I think that most of the way that the pendulum automatically, if we're not careful, we get moved into this serfdom, we get moved into this enslavement. But the way to make sure that you don't slip into that, which is just how, I suppose, like entropy, you just naturally just get caught up in this. You get with your houses, mortgage, shopping, you're busy, you buy things, and we get trapped. It's only with using your attention that you can work your way carefully, slowly back into liberty. Um, and to live freely. And I think that the hope, it doesn't necessarily, and I think one thing we're told about even in society at the moment is people would say, you need to have $2 million or £2 million in the bank before you can retire. I think you can retire on a lot less. Certainly, that's a path that I would like to understand how to do. And I do regret a lot of my previous spending over the years on cars and stuff that wasn't important. And understanding how compounding works, I could have escaped it. But I sense that I am not going to be able to escape and just jump out and stop working anytime soon. But what I do want to live, and so what the liberty for me looks like, is living a life that is where I have more agency, where I am freer, and where I am able to contribute and add. And I think this is the challenge with the corporate world and any job, and just the way the world is. It's extractive. It's extractive, and how do we? It's almost like it takes the best of us. But the challenge and the goal that I want to work towards is how do we leave the world in surplus? Because the world will keep take from us. But and I suppose whenever I think about it, I say leave the world in surplus. But yes, ultimately, I think maybe you get the point. We should be giving more of ourselves than I think maybe we should be able to give more of ourselves to the people who matter around us than what we allow the world in general to take from us. And it's about preserving energy and about uh, correct focus. And so, so much the part of this, then, as I say, this is to do with attention. And my big bugbear, and I've been guilty of it, is technology and screen time. And that's why I keep going on about it, because I know that it has fragmented my attention. It pulls me in and it doesn't allow me to think in the bigger things of life. And so, ironically, curiously, writing the YouTube videos has allowed me to think more about this and to try and draw and pull these big themes together. I want to understand that how we live purposefully, in a system that doesn't really want that. And how do I live biblically, or at least, and that's an interesting topic, I think, for another day. I mean, as I say, as a Christian, there's an excellent framework there to live, but the key thing about that is that it's a case of there is a God and it isn't me, and it's how do I live? How do I put him at the top? How do I serve him? And here's the thing, this God, Jesus, he says, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. So his yoke is light, his burden is easy. And yet I think in the natural we feel, no, it can't be like that. It can't be so simple. But yet he demands everything of us. But yet he promises us sort of an easy, well, not an easy ride, but he promises us it's not the same enslavement that the world offers, because the world extracts, but yet he gives bounteously. And so I think, I know we're still talking quite abstractly here, but just rounding up on all the things that I've been thinking over the last few days, it's how do we get into this area, or this zone of living where we're contributing, where there is responsibility, but it's enough responsibility for us to thrive, and doesn't a responsibility that doesn't crush us, and a responsibility that leads us onward, and causes us to leave the world in surplus, because that's very important for me. Um, so I take this Sunday, and I'd hope that you'll take my reflections, and you'll think about it as well. But how can you get Sunday to be a day of integration for you? Not another day of production or creation or doing things because they need done. How can you cause those natural rhythms and breaks in your life and allow Sunday, I think, to be a day that just the silt settles and you really get back into living and thinking. It's all, I think that's what it is. It's this ability to become aware of what's going on in life and being able to make decisions then to adjust. And as I say, so number one for me, it's my focus on attention, and I am doing a number of things to deal with this. I've talked about, I've put various apps on my phone, the Focus Friend app, which I genuinely have cut my screen time down from probably about 3.5, 4 hours a day down to somewhere between 1.5 to 2 hours. And probably where I have been guilty, and even a lot of that time is I've been checking YouTube Studio to see how the views are doing, and I haven't done that much at all today, and that's something I need to think about. I've made my phone black and white so it's less interesting to look at, and I've just done that yesterday. I've started back on the ketogenic diet. I know not for everybody, but it is one of those diets and ways of eating that just your mind starts being able to focus, and so that's something I'm excited to be able to push on. And the other thing, and I'd forgotten about it for such a long time, was power naps. I am one of those lucky people who is able to close his eyes for 10 minutes. I'd set the alarm for 15, and I would wake up after 6 to 10 minutes, and I just feel like the computer has been booted down and booted back up again. And it's something that's just causing me to have more time and space to think and just to be able to have more motivation, because so much I think of life is about friction and just not feeling like doing things, because you just it's almost summoning up the mental effort. And I'm finding just by changing the diet, cutting down the phone time, getting in the power naps, that I'm feeling that life is starting to I'm feeling quite passionate about this now. And like I don't know, I mean, how long the YouTube thing will last, and I genuinely hope that I can that the guys like you will come along in the journey with me, and we will build something, and we will be lovely to just build a community of serious guys who just want to live differently and to live almost beyond the grip of the system, and to live well and to live rightly and to live unfragmented lives, lives that our children and others who know us will look back on us and say that was a good man, he lived well. um, and I've always wanted to be that guy, and it's probably taking me, as I say, a long time with integration. I get there in the end, but there's just something intuitively deep in here that's telling me that's how I've got to live, and that's why I'm so enthused and excited about this channel. And I hope it becomes less clunky over time in my thoughts. And I'll try and pick, maybe not delve as deeply into themes, but I hope you'll join me and certainly contribute. Tell me things you're thinking about. Let's reflect on it, because I really have a heart for men. I want us to I want us to die with our swords in our hand, with a smile on our face. Um, that's my goal. And if I can help you get there, I'm on the right path. Listen, thanks for tuning in to Taking Stock, and we'll catch up with you soon. Bye bye.